All right. Well, hello, everybody out there in Airline. Give me 1 second. Let me try to get myself in a little bit of focus here. This is ChrisMajorLegacy.com with another exciting episode of Topher's Log. Now, if you don't know what Topher's Log is, you can go back and watch the first episode, which was last week. It's basically just me getting on camera, stripped down version, talking for about 10 minutes or so of some of the rumors, speculation, and chatter that's going on around the Horror Nights community, the sphere, about what may or may not be coming to Halloween Horror Nights 29. Now, last week we talked a little bit about rumors and speculation about a couple of venues that may or may not make it to Halloween Horror Nights 29 that we've had for quite some time. You go back and watch that episode if you so choose. This week we're going to talk about wow, dust everywhere. This week we're going to talk a little bit about the elephant in the room, as it were. We're going to get down and talk about some houses. This week there was a lot of chatter about houses. There's one in particular that I want to talk about, and it is the big elephant in the room. Now, some people out there who've been following me for a long time know that I might have some birdies and stuff that talk to me about the secrets of Halloween Horror Nights every year. But in the case of this house in particular, you don't need birdies talking in your ear about it coming or not. It's actually kind of obvious if you think about it, or a no-brainer if it does show up, and that is Stranger Things. Now, Stranger Things was a massive success for Halloween Horror Nights 28. Probably more so than even the people behind the scenes thought it was, or thought it was going to be. It was incredibly successful, whether it was the house or whether it was the merchandising, the advertising. It brought butts in the turnstiles. People came in droves to experience Stranger Things. It is what it is. The highest guest satisfaction survey in the history of Halloween Horror Nights. That is quite something. But it should come as no surprise if Stranger Things does return. It really shouldn't come as no surprise. There's been a lot of comparisons to say like The Walking Dead. Stranger Things is the new Walking Dead. And in a way, it kind of is true. They're both television shows, and they're both extremely popular. And like The Walking Dead, a lot of people forget that when they first had The Walking Dead was at the height of its popularity. It was at the height of its powers. Stranger Things is currently riding that wave as well. Stranger Things is currently at the height of its popularity. And Universal is feeding off of that for the event, and rightfully so. To get the property to come to the event was not a cheap feat. It was not something that they really took lightly. They knew that landing this property would be huge, and it definitely paid off in droves. So I would not put it past the people behind the scenes at Horror Nights to milk this for all it's worth. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? History has shown us that The Walking Dead sort of lost its luster, even though I would argue that it never really had any luster because they sort of fumbled the ball in that first house and they were never really able to recover over the course of the 5 years that they had The Walking Dead. There were one or two good and decent houses in that run, but they really, really did not come out of the gate with a home run with that first house. With Stranger Things, I was not a huge fan of Stranger Things. I know, amongst the regular guests at the event, it was extremely popular and people loved the house. I was not a huge fan. I think they did a good job of transporting you into the show. But other than that, almost like The Walking Dead, Stranger Things to me is not a horror show. And like The Walking Dead obviously has the zombies, but that show is really dependent on the drama around the characters. The sort of soap opera-esque drama crap that goes on in that show. Stranger Things is kind of the same thing, except it's done massively better than The Walking Dead, in my opinion. The characters are much more likable. The storylines are much more interesting. The setting is much more interesting, to me anyway. But it's really not a horror show. And the first house sort of demonstrated that, where they really didn't have a whole lot of horror elements to put in the house, minus the Demogorgons. And there were... at every corner of that house, there were Demogorgons that were thrown at you. Some might say to good effect, some might say to bad effect. I really don't think it was quite that effective. But nevertheless, because the show was so popular, you should not be surprised if it does return, and it's around for quite some time because until the property starts to lose its luster, just like The Walking Dead, I would fully expect this property to be around for quite some time. It would not surprise me. The other aspect to the whole Stranger Things house chatter that I had heard is this notion of a dual run Stranger Things house. Now, what is a dual run house? Basically, it's the same thing as what they had back. I can't remember the actual year. I don't have my notes in front of me, but it's between 97 and 99. There was a house called the Fritanic House, which was basically two versions of the same house. Both you would wait in line and you would be able to pick one house of your choosing. It was basically the same house, but different takes on the house. So the chatter was about this sort of notion of a dual run Stranger Things house, which would either be, one side would be like season 2, and one side would be season 3, or one side would be season 1 or 2 or 3. It was like a mixture of the 3 seasons, because by the time Horror Nights rolls around, we would have season 3 of Stranger Things. So this notion of now, do I think that this is a good idea? That's kind of what I wanted to get at. From a business perspective, I think it is a good idea. I think because you can advertise the event as having more houses than last year, because it would technically be considered 2 houses. So you can advertise with that, and you got double your Stranger Things. As opposed to what they did with The Walking Dead, where they sort of, got overzealous and decided to make the entire park Walking Dead one year. I really hope they don't go that way, but I don't think they will, because I think they learned their lesson the first time. But I think it is a good idea from a business perspective. Now, my only concern is that they put the houses are a little bit better done than last year, because, like I said, for me personally, I was not a huge fan of the Stranger Things house. So if they do something along the lines of this, just make them good. I want to do more than just walk through the show. Physically, scare me a little bit, and I'm not saying that the houses were, or the house was poorly designed or whatever. I'm saying I think there needs to be a little bit more oomph in the Walking Dead houses, or in the Stranger Things houses. I have Walking Dead on the brain. But yeah, I mean, like, it is what it is. But the point is that nobody should be surprised if Stranger Things makes another appearance this year. The other thing that I had seen in terms of chatter that sort of sparked my interest in more ways than one was this notion of The Haunting of Hill House, which is the other Netflix show. Obviously, Universal has a good working relationship with Netflix right now because of the success of Stranger Things, and I think that the wigs at Netflix were really kind of impressed by what, because they were at the event last year, so they're really kind of impressed with what they did, not just with Stranger Things, but the event itself. Hill House, I think, would be another interesting get, because like it's very similar in terms of like Stranger Things and like even The Walking Dead, where yeah, it's a horror show, but the show is more kind of dependent on the drama. It's not really, I mean, there are scary elements in Haunting of Hill House, but it really is a show that's focused on the family drama that's going on in the storyline. What they can do is if they wanted to do it, they can do their own version of a Hill House story, maybe having the estate as the setting, and sort of doing their own you walk through the estate of Hill House, and scary things and spooky things happen, like you're exploring Hill House or whatever. They can do their own if they do their own version of that. I think that could work. I don't think physically translating that first season of the show would work per se. I think that they would need their own freedom to do what they wanted to do with that property, as opposed to being ham-fisted by that first season, because the first season would not translate well to the show. So yeah, so that pretty much covers some of the chatter that I wanted to talk about this week, Stranger Things, and of course some of the Netflix stuff. We will see what happens. I'm not saying I know or not know anything, but that's sort of the point of this. So, but until next week, I will talk to you guys then.